The price of a home in Canada is probably the number one thing people talk about and have been talking about for, I don't know, the last decade. If you were trying to get into the market, it is ridiculous. No matter where you live in this country, it is a ridiculous cost. And there's all sorts of, policy ideas and, there's some innovation trying to help people come up with that down payment if, they don't happen to have gazillionaire parents who are going to cut them a check for it. We've got one other interesting idea. It is something called Zown, an online brokerage and down payment assistance provider. And today we're talking with the co-founder. Rishard Rameez is co-founder and CEO, and he's here to tell us how it works. Hello there.
Hey, bros. Thanks for having me.
It is my pleasure. I came across your company, and the thing that stuck was down payment assistance provider. I know that's not the only thing, but that's the
Of
thing that
course.
caught my attention. First, tell me briefly, what is the problem that you're trying to solve?
I think for many Canadians, especially like myself, who's just starting to get into a home, who's wanting to really call this place a home, but then we are stuck in this loop of renting simply because we do have good jobs, we do make enough money to pay someone else's mortgage, but we simply can't afford to save up for that down payment that's needed to buy a home. So the problem that we are trying to solve is from a very different angle where we realize that so much in commissions that get split across real estate agents, mortgage brokers when you're buying or selling a home. And we thought of a innovative way, how if we could repackage this transaction fees to help people with their down payment, that could change the timeline for someone to own a home. And that's what we are doing here.
Right. So your marketing materials, when it talks about down payment assistance, it says it's not a loan and you're not giving away ownership. So if it's not those two things, how does it work?
Yeah, so simply how it works, Bruce, is when someone purchases a home, the realtor who's helping them purchase the property gets paid 2.5% in commissions from the seller of the property. What we do is, however, we give 60% of our commissions as an advanced cashback, as opposed to a cashback that comes after the transaction is completed. So now it can truly help that person afford that property. That's how Zone works.
So that would rely on the buyer to work with a realtor connected to Zone. Is that correct?
Absolutely right. So we have realtors that over 300 plus realtors that work across Ontario to help buyers with finding the right property, putting the right offer, negotiate, and get the deal done.
And what would be in it for a realtor? I mean, the market is so competitive. Sounds like they're going to make less money with this model.
Absolutely. But then if you look at the numbers across Ontario, we have over 120,000 realtors across Ontario. But unfortunately, many of these realtors actually don't do even a single deal. The numbers are about 90%. So that's not because these realtors are bad at in terms of what they do, but they simply don't have the leads to work with. So if you are able to spend on marketing, get a lot of leads, then of course you have business. So with Zone, what we do is we cater to this 90% who are good realtors, who could be good realtors, but they don't have leads to work with. So we select the best out of the best, and we make them a part of Zone's network, and we give them business, and we pay them on an hourly basis.
Interesting. Okay. So if we were to like fully divide up the process here, you would say that the buyer would be paying that commission, whatever that dollar value is, and instead they're getting that rebated and they can add that cash to their down payment. Have I oversimplified it accurately?
Yeah. I mean, pretty accurate, right? So we give 1.5%. So that pretty much covers all of their closing costs.
And how does that look to the lender? So how does that show up when you're going to get pre-approved for a mortgage? How does that make you either qualify for a bigger house or help you cross over any of the regulated thresholds like the 5% or the 10% or the 20%?
Yeah, I mean, most first-time home buyers that we work with buy a property in that 600 to 700,000 range, right? So they are able to buy a $600,000 home with a minimum down payment, which is 5% on the first 500 and 10% of the rest of it. So on a $600,000 property, we are looking at about $35,000 in terms of down payment. But on top of that, they also need to now save that 1.5 to 2% towards the closing cost. So on top of saving for a down payment, they also have to work on saving for the closing cost, which includes land transfer tax. Especially if you're buying in Toronto, it's double, right? So the 1.5% we provide simply can cover almost all of their closing costs. So all the savings that they have saved up can now go towards their down payment. So now that means they could even afford $50,000 to $60,000 more of a property because we took care of that entire closing cost.
Is that something that the mortgage broker would have factored into what they qualify for?
So previously, you would have to have that down payment set aside and then also your closing costs set aside. So with Zone's assistance that can pretty much cover all of their closing costs, now all the money they have saved up can be taken into consideration as down payment only.
How do you make your money as Zone?
Of course, how do we make our money? So we still get 2.5% from the seller, right? So we are getting 1.5%, we keep 1%, we pay our realtors on an hourly wage. So they are really incentivized to provide a really good service, and we increase this hourly wage based on reviews and things of that nature. So this is essentially taking care of that side. And the other condition is we are simply looking to build a long-term relationship with our customer base. So what we do is essentially, hey, use us as your realtor whenever you do decide to sell your property. And even at the time of sale, we'll still give them back 0.5% in cash back as well. So that's how we build a business. We are building a sustainable business that we're not just looking at today, but how do we build a long-term relationship with our home buyers?
In the last 20 years, there have been many, many efforts to try and shake up the traditional real estate market in this country.
Of course.
And there have been precious few innovations that have stuck. Why do you think that is? And why do you think you'll be any different?
Good question, right? I mean, we get asked this question a lot of, especially from investors, left and right, right? And I think a lot of the folks that have tried to change the industry has come from a angle of reducing fees, right? Again, reducing fees is a good selling point, but not necessarily a good way to build a business, right? You also need to be able to use technology to make things efficient. Like if you're still stuck with the traditional method of essentially paying a commission, but less of a commission, but haven't really created any efficiency within the process of either home buying or selling, it becomes really tough to build a sustainable business model. What we have done is we've built a ton of algorithms behind on our backend that get someone a pre-approval within less than 5 minutes, right? So these are efficiencies that we've built. So you don't have to wait for a mortgage broker, talk to them, submit all these documents and all that. So we've built so much efficiency when it comes to buying a home, which I think a lot of companies have forgotten about. And they've simply gone in from an angle of reducing costs, will get us more business and we'll build a sustainable business. But what we've
The
done is, yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, no, what we've done is we've built an all-in-one solution from end to end. So you come to us, we take care of your mortgage process, we find you the right property, we get you to put an offer, get the offer accepted, take care of your closings as well.
Real estate is cyclical. It hasn't really felt so much like that in the last decade because it's gone one direction, that is
Of
up. But
course.
in many pockets of this country, there is either flattening or declining home prices, and certainly flattening and declining volume, totally dependent on where you live. How does your business model work in a time in which the real estate market is in contraction?
I mean, this is a great question, right? So most of our home buyers right now, like, so December is supposed to be the slowest month. It's the 10th of December, and we've almost gotten 10 people into their first homes. So this is most likely going to be one of our best months, in fact, because as much as I think the entire market is in it towards sort of going towards a downward trend, but we are helping first-time home buyers get into something that they couldn't before. right? So this opens up a new category of market for us that no one was able to address before. So that all of a sudden brings in a new, we create a new segment of market that helps our business continue to grow even in a downward market. And on the other hand, when we look at also first-time home buyers, first-time home buyers are looking to get into something that they can get into, anything pretty much, right? They're not very selective about, I need this, this, and this. It's pretty much like, these are my numbers. What can I get into? So we make it possible today. Hey, here's what you can get into.
Really interesting stuff. Thank you for joining us to talk about Zown.
Thank you so much, Bruce. Thanks for having me.
Rishard Rameez is co-founder and CEO of Zown, an interesting new model, which includes this new thing called a down payment assistance provider.